so the main thing I guess we're going to talk about today is ketamine as well. And it's great to have someone who's been trained in all these different kind of modes of psychedelic psychotherapy. And I apologize if I continue to use the word psychedelic out of instinct or a
It's
habit.
fine.
But so I've heard you say elsewhere that you were first kind of initially weren't as interested in ketamine as a kind of mode of psychedelic psychotherapy, which resonated with me as well. It took me a while to come around to it, and yeah, I was interested as to why that was.
Oh, yes, I love this story because I feel like in this field, I've always, for the most part, been a believer in the power and the potential of these medicines. But when I went through my ketamine training, um, I was like, yeah, this, you know, I can understand and respect the medicine, as it's been helpful, and research shows that it's been helpful for a lot of different people. So I'm not here to invalidate that research work. But, it's not for me. It's not for, I don't think it's suitable for the patients that I serve. So I'm just going to stick to the MDMAs or the psilocybin-assisted therapies and just wait for their hopeful approval. But it wasn't until um, a client reached out to me who was a Black woman, and she was struggling a lot. And she went to she's tried everything like traditional talk therapy. She went to this residential facility for her trauma and really had harmful experiences in that space as it relates to her racial trauma. And so she said, like, hey, like, is MDMA therapy available? Like, I'm really needing help. Like, what about the clinical trials? Like, are you all still engaged in those? And I told her that we were at the time we weren't engaged in MDMA therapy work anymore, but we offer ketamine assisted psychotherapy. I'm saying we offering it because I have the training in it, but like there was a real part of me that was, um, a bit resistant to even having a conversation about it. And she was, at the time, she was like, yes, sign me up. Like, let's go through this process. I really am interested in getting my life back because at the time she was out of work on disability because her trauma symptoms were so severe. And she experienced workplace discrimination, which I find a lot of folks of color experience, especially Black women. And so she was out of work and really needed a solution to help her. And so, long story short, we engaged in our culturally responsible ketamine therapy treatment, which we actually wrote a paper about, and we can link that paper in the description of the talk. If folks want to know more about the case. But I mean, her symptoms decreased significantly. It was a 2-week intensive outpatient program where there was a combination of both drug and non-drug sessions with ketamine, and again through a culturally informed lens. So we're asking about her racial identity development. Experiences of her racialized trauma came up in her dosing session, and where she could have corrective experiences. And maybe just to share a little bit about her experience. Yeah, just her childhood trauma was really severe. She was physically assaulted by white kids. They would spit on her, call her names, and all of these experiences of racialized trauma were coming up. And unfortunately, she did not have someone, an adult at her in her life at the time, to say that, hey, no, this is because of racism, or hey, that wasn't okay. That the adults in her life, whether it was her parents or whether it was her school instructors, they really dismissed that. So she had been carrying all of these stories. Her body had been carrying all of these stories for decades. And she was able to release that and really have an embodied release of that experience. And yeah, she had a significant reduction in her depression and trauma symptoms at the end of the treatment. And her trauma symptoms, actually, the reduction in those symptoms were maintained 6 months after she completed that series of treatment, which I was happy to be just a small part in holding space for her in that journey work.